I will read our Surry County Board of Elections conflict of interest statement. As the Surry County Board of Elections, we have a duty to avoid conflicts or appearances of conflicts of interest. Does any board member have any known conflict of interest or any appearance of a conflict with respect to any matter coming before our board today? If so, please identify the conflict or appearance of conflict and refrain from any participation in the particular matter. We have before us the minutes from July the 12th, 2024, our last meeting for approval today in our packet.
I'm sorry, I tried to get that little widow off the second page there, but I just couldn't quite get it. She's all alone on that one. No, I spaced and I deleted all I could.
Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the minutes of July the 12th as they are written.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Motion. We have a second for the approval of our minutes from the July the 12th meeting. Any discussion? If not, all those in approval, please say aye.
Sorry.
No problem. Thank you.
I hate that.
Next on our agenda is the public forum portion of our meeting. I'll open our public forum for anyone here wishing to speak to the Board of Elections for 3 minutes. Please state your name, if you're a voter in Surry County, your telephone number, and so please.
Stand here.
Stand, Michelle.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, I'm Joe Zalesik, 1541 West Devon Drive, City of Mount Airy, 336-934-2791, registered voter, and a candidate for Surry County Soil and Water District Supervisor. I just wanted to come before the board today to say how much I appreciate all the hard work. This is a long election process, starting with December of last year, with filing, with doing, everything involved with the staff, it's been exceptional. When, you know, I've been doing this, I guess, 3 years now, but every time that I run for office, it's a breeze. I mean, you have A1 staff, and whenever there's a problem or an issue with a form or a filing, it gets taken care of with no problem. It's a lot of work. And I know that this board has been doing a great job all year. I've been watching your meetings. I don't always come to your meetings, but you know, it's a heavy lift sometimes with all the changes, and it's going to be even heavier, I'm sure, because every day there's another lawsuit filed or another action filed against the state, and you know, they keep changing the rules. But I'm hoping for a smooth election with early voting coming up, and I just again want to give you my appreciation as a candidate and as a voter that this board and this staff is doing Surry County fine. I just, again, thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you, the board thanks you, and I know the staff appreciates you.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, thank you, Justin.
Great.
Mhm.
Nice compliment, thank you.
I'm not in trouble. No, my name's Alan, James Allen Poindexter. I live at 121 Fulton Trail, Dawson. I am a registered voter. And, phone number 56-648-9432. The reason I come today is, as well, y'all know as well as I do, Ms. Thing, that we have a situation with our county going on with a board member that recently resigned. And I have reached out numerous times to our party chair to, you know, I said, you know, I volunteered to put my name in. And there was another individual put their name in, but then he found out that he couldn't politics and campaign as a board member, so he could choose. And I reached out to our state representative and our state senator to see what the county could possibly do. I mean, I know there's guidelines and laws, but see if there's some things to be done differently. If I'm not trying to put this on one party or another, because all parties have their own faults. It's not one party that does everything. It's not another party that does everything bad and everything does good. But I reached out to our chairman and I put my name as an interest in this because I love to serve the people and I love to serve the public. And I think I can be fair. And I was just gonna see if there's any discussion or if there's anything that can be done, since I know as of right now it's up to our party chair. But we got an important election coming up here this year. I mean, every election is important, but this year has been a presidential year. No matter if Republican, Democrat, anything, it doesn't matter. It shouldn't be about parties. We're all Americans, and we should all, you know, agree to disagree. If we have a disagreement with somebody, talk about it. You know, I believe in, you know, I don't say compromise, but you know, don't compromise your value. But at the same time, go with what the true meaning of anything. We all got a right to vote, and we're all Americans. We all want the same thing. At least I would hope so, and that's unifying the people. And with that being said, you know, I'd like to extend my my gratitude and things as an audit, you know, because you know it's about unity and and but you know that's what it's about. It's about the people. It's not what I want to do, but it's what's about things to do for the people. And I might do some things that not some people not agree with or not agree with the way they wanted to. But I'm a man. If something happens to me, I'll own up to it. And I believe I can be unbiased and be fair to everybody, and most of the voters, because that's what it's about. It's something because when you're in office, you don't supposed to represent one party or the other. You're supposed to be representing the people as a whole. So that's why I just want to say anything, and I appreciate y'all. Thank you. But that's one thing I wanted to know. If there's any discussion of what can be done since there is a vacancy going on, and
Thank you.
thanks for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Al.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you. Is there anyone online that wishes to speak before the board? And the answer to that is no.
How do you like our paging system?
Elections in Oregon. Is there anyone else present? If not, I'll proceed to close the public forum portion of this meeting. And we'll move to our next agenda item, the write-in candidate certification.
Yes, sir. We did receive a set of, it's 8 different pages. I'll pass these around for the board to view. From a W.T. Steele, the fourth, who has sought a space on the ballot as a write-in candidate for Elkin City School Board of Education. Currently on the ballot for that seat is Dr. Richard Brenner. And if this board does certify this petition today, this write-in petition today, then a line would be placed on the ballot below Richard Brenner's name. The staff has verified each signature that you see there on the eight pages that were submitted, and 59 names out of the 64 were acceptable. And
What was the minimum?
I was gonna say, you know what? I had everything written down here, but what the minimum is, hold on 1 second, and I can find that for you. Go over.
So thank you, because it exceeds the threshold.
It does exceed the threshold. Really asking about this. My phone. Like 40 something, I apologize.
Yeah, the number is 40, about percentage.
No, not the
Percentage,
percentage.
something like that.
Yeah. Mhm.
Is there one or two?
One.
One. Okay. Okay, so registered. Have you registered?
Have to be registered voters, and you see some are not.
Well, there's two with one residence, one of them must not have been registered.
Mhm.
Within that district, the school board district.
Within the Elkin City School Board District, and remember, if someone is on that list and they're not registered, then this will register them. We send them a letter, that states that they will register at the address provided, so that has been done. And that's actually not, this is what the forms look like. Someone, actually painted portraits of the landscape that these kids. But if that's still acceptable, and I said yes. You see, I'm seeing my date here. My number. That the last, yeah, that's all of them. And again, I will say, if you all do certify, then it will not, his name would not appear on the ballot, just the write-in line.
Have a line blank.
Correct. And then that will leave another, Elkin School Board seat that will not have a line. So we will have to train our poll workers on how to answer but not answer that, because we would not be able to point out, of course, who that line is for.
Right.
But there is another seat for Elkins City School Board on the ballot.
But has no write-in candidate.
Correct.
Would they have to say
And that-
this is for a particular seat and
Yeah.
not call
The heading is, it already says what seat it's for, and then her seat is the West District, I think he's City, and, it's separate, and then she has no one, running against her. She would be no line below her name.
is this when's the last date for applications for?
It was August the 7th, and so he did have it turned in timely, and we did vet those names in time, yep.
And what the statute says is if there are fewer than 5,000 eligible voters within the district, it's 1%. So
I think it's
the most,
4,000 and
yeah, the
something.
most it can be is 50.
Mhm.
So it meets, and
It
exceeds.
exceeds, yeah.
What be the board's wishes for the acceptance of the certification for the write-in candidate, Mr. W.T.
Silly,
Surry?
is how he pronounced it.
The fourth. Surry.
I'll make a motion, we accept it. It's made the minimum and it's turned in a timely fashion.
I second that motion.
We have a motion and a second for the acceptance of the certification of the write-in candidate for Elkins School Board seat, W.T. Stella. The fourth, any discussion for the motion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion is unanimous.
Okay.
And we do have a three-person board, today, bipartisan, so we do have a minimum of a quorum.
Jimmy, do you mind passing that to the chairman and kind of get your signature on that certification letter, tonight? Thank you. And, after this, I should be able to do what we need to do that's still pending the ballots in order to get our sample ballot up and going, in order ballot. So this was the last thing we're waiting on.
There's
So,
nothing else that can be added.
no, not from the county, yes.
I was gonna say.
So we will begin the proof process and get that done tonight, so we can be ready for, Surry County can be, I think 50% of the counties already have ballots. So we're in that other 50%.
Then,
That do not.
what would be what's the minimum if they want their name on the ballot, but running as unregistered, not registered?
Unaffiliated by petition.
Unaffiliated.
What was
That was the date of the primary, by 12 noon on the
it?
day of
Had
the
to write
primary.
it, had it sent in by them.
Worked, yeah, and like, Judy Barham, she's on there, and she had to submit those by noon on the day of the primary. To be on the ballot for the general.
I thought we'd done something.
Yeah,
But we have.
yeah. Seems like a long time ago, don't it?
Sure does.
Okay, we can move along to the resolution for the buffer zone for the Pilot Mountain precinct in the southwest field. Elkin early voting sites. I think we have some examples before us in the packet.
Yes, you should.
Buffer zone,
Some photos there. And the one on top is that Pilot there, Jenny? I think, yes, the
Yes,
first
it
one should be Pilot. And, Pilot Mountain, if you can see in the cones there, that middle photo in your packet, that is showing it at the 40 feet mark, not the 50. So staff is recommending to this board to back it up to the 40. because you see the parking spaces there, they're gonna be painted over and brightened up. But if people are utilizing these spaces, which that's what we have indicated on the letter, then electioneers are not gonna have the ability to be able to do any electioneering there. So we felt like it'd be better to back it up to 40, so they could at least have that strip outside of the grass, to approach voters, but that's up to this board to determine, because it is less than 50.
Well, obviously, as we learned during our conference, that the minimum is 25 feet.
Mhm.
But when you look at where 25 feet would take the buffer zone, it would be in the parking spaces.
It would,
Um,
and
and
that's
That,
gonna be a
that
bad
could be
taste.
dangerous,
Yes,
for everybody. So,
Now, this is particular door is for the entrance and exit both for candidates,
yes, sir.
excuse me, voters.
Yes, enter and exit the door you see in that middle photo there.
Where is the,
The room.
drive-through?
The curbside will be in one of these spaces here, unless we can use that covered area in the front. I think that's what we're probably gonna do, is use that, but the election worker will be going in and out this same door, serving them
And going
under,
around the corner.
and going around the corner, yeah.
It's, what is that, about 5 feet from the 40 foot to the grass, or less than 5 feet?
Probably less than, yeah, because the 50
Three.
puts you on in the grass. And then see, this is also, voters will back out and then go around the building to exit.
So the voters can park there, but
Uh-huh.
no one can be standing around there. If they have to be just that little spot there where it's paved.
But that's up to this board. Mhm.
Well, is that what you
But
recommend?
that mark there is the 40 feet. And the other two photos is 40 feet at the diagonal from the door, so covering all areas.
You don't think it would, you think we ought to have a little space there instead of having none, or is that
I
what?
think a little space is better, and then, they can always go this way if a car is coming. And I know they will want to hand out things from that point versus where these other cones are, because of the parking spaces. And this bottom photo, there's no spaces marking along the driveway at the grass on what would be the right there. But they're going to be parking spaces marked when we get them marked by our contractor.
They're gonna do it before November.
Talked to him today, he called, and he's doing it no later than late September, probably mid-September.
I'm going to use the 50-foot photo, but it could be also for the 40-foot.
Mm-hmm.
The 40 feet, of course, it comes out. If board members can see this where I'm pointing, it comes out to the side. And then does it go in an arc around to the side of the building here?
Mm-hmm.
It does, it will.
Mm-hmm. It will.
Good. Okay. If we use the canopy area,
Mm-hmm.
it will not be accessed by a door under that canopy area. But that canopy area will have a 40-foot circumference around it, or 50 foot, whatever we decide.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So the whole, it's a 40 foot circumference, entire, the stretch of 50 out here,
Mm-mm.
it's all 40.
It would be 40 all the way, yeah. And then if you want to go to the next page there with, you see that where the 50 foot, I think that Dwayne's mentioned. Then if you flip on over Southwest Field, you see the cone there, that's where 50 feet from the door will put you. That is sufficient, that's plenty of space both ways on either side of that buffer zone for, electioneering to occur. And then lastly, if you'll flip over to Elkin, this is the Elkin early voting site, which is the Elkin Rescue Squad. And that cone at the top of well, both of these are 50 feet. We did 25 because this is a very short, narrow parking lot. We did different increments there, and it just put everything in you see the two arrows, there's two directions for traffic. It just puts everybody camped out there, and that's not gonna work for voters. So we thought pushing it back to the 50 feet is still just a little outside of the parking spaces that's along the front curb, which is where all the signs are placed there anyway. So again, this wouldn't be changing it, but we've never really set the buffer zone in concrete, so to speak, for Elkin at the rescue squad.
What has it been?
Well, it was 50 feet with the chalk line. And that, but it's never been, I just want this board to formally adopt that in Elkin. Because this would be the only early voting line that would not be permanent. The Mount Airy and Dobson have permanent buffer zone painted on the asphalt.
Okay,
So I put that all in one resolution for the buffer zones. And Mr. Chairman, I also have a resolution, transferring the pilot precinct and the southwestfield precinct. So I've got two separate resolutions.
You got a lady in the background that Southwest Street.
That was Mr. Gilly.
Oh,
That let us in and met with us, and that is such a nice facility. And they are so proud, and they should be. They take a lot of time and
Is that early
energy.
son? Is it going?
I don't
Is that
know.
early Gilly son?
son or grandson?
Well, he's campaigning Gilly.
Really?
Yeah.
But,
His wife was Andy's first cousin.
oh, really? But just,
So,
they are very, it's a nice facility.
Yes, it looks like.
do we want
I
to take the individual sites for questions or discussion? You have this in one resolution, but we'll need to make
For the buffer zones,
a
yeah.
buffer zone.
And then the transfer of the two precincts is a separate. You want to do the resolution for individual on the buffer zones for the three locations?
Might want to break them out as far as the vote, and then it goes into the resolution. Wouldn't you all think? Because
I agree, Mr. Chairman. I think that
so in
identifying them individually.
pilot was the first presented. What say you? What feels good towards the 40 or the 50 foot?
I see more advantages with the 40-foot buffer. Not only from an accessibility standpoint, but also from a safety standpoint. At 40 feet, and the only reason I say that is if I'm looking at the pictures correctly, at 50 feet, that 50-foot mark starts to go out into the entrance and exit of the road closer into that area. Purely from a safety standpoint, I just think that could be an issue.
Definitely staff.
Yeah.
But we need to get that fine.
And so you can't see it in the photo, Jimmy, but they always maintain this so nicely. But now a Dollar General has been built and a retaining wall has been built.
Yeah.
Oh, and the backfill or the lack thereof of that retaining wall that is on the rescue squad property is a mess. And
More reason. Yeah.
yes, and it's uneven. The chief met with us and he said, "I'm sorry for how that looks, but we're having sort of a standoff." We're trying to force them to regrade that back to the way it was, our property, the way it was. So it's very rough and unlevel if you get too much off that grass that's been mown right there. So that's about maybe 2.5 feet.
Yeah, at the most.
You need a,
I think we need to take a vote on each one to put into what resolution that we want to finalize.
3 resolutions, 3 votes.
Or 3 votes in one resolution.
Well, I make a motion, we accept the 40-foot buffer at pilot.
And I second.
We have a motion, we have a second for the 40-foot buffer for the Pilot Mountain Rescue Squad location. Any further discussion? If not, all of us in favor of the 40-foot, please say aye. Aye. 40 foot. Madam Director,
Southwest field next.
it would be.
Yes, sir. And this one, again, we will not be marking a permanent line, of course, on there. It's nice, clean sidewalk. We will put the cone that you see there. We'll do a chalk line, and then that cone would be, on one side or the other, there in the grass. So that would not be a permanent buffer zone, but the chief judge would mark it.
Okay.
And again, we just need to formally adopt this, because this is a new precinct.
New location in Southwestfield, any discussion? From board, possible motion.
Motion for 50 foot.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second for 50-foot buffer zone for the Southwestfield precinct site, new site. Any discussion for the motion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, Madam Director.
Do you know how the church, how the vote went? They approved it, you know?
No.
How it wasn't?
No, we just got the good word they did. I didn't ask no other questions.
I don't
We just thanked them profusely.
And they're okay with us, people who are campaigning to walk out all over that grass?
And luckily, we did have a conversation with Mr. Gilly, and they're even thinking they're gonna put a tent up and hand out some goodie bags with information about their church, if voters would like it. So we said, absolutely, as long as you're outside of the 50 foot, you're not blocking campaigners. I think that's a good idea.
That's a good idea for them.
So
Yeah.
they're looking at this as a way to do outreach.
They're fulfilling their great mission.
That's right,
That's
right.
wonderful.
They've been so wonderful. Really to work
Opportunity
with.
for us, opportunity for them.
That's right. That's the way they're looking at it.
Sounds good.
Moving to the Elkins early voting site.
And I apologize, but you did have a photo there of the 40 feet as well, and you see it's
Yes.
right in the center. Up to this board, but we do not recommend, we do recommend the 40 feet at Elkin, but,
The 40, not the 50.
I mean, the 50, I said it
Yeah.
completely backwards, yeah, we do recommend the 50 because the 40 is gonna be right in the path where all the traffic is gonna be.
And the
We
50
are-
foot is what it has been.
Correct, it's just not been on
Yeah.
paper.
Right.
And we're also, while we're talking about this, we are gonna have our precinct officials park in the back in that lower lot for early voting, to leave more
Space.
spaces for voters.
There, so we're gonna paint the line.
No, we're not gonna paint, it will be, cones and, chalk line here.
I didn't know how that.
Any other questions on Elkins?
We'll
Please don't do it.
we'll swap roles this time, Drew. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we accept the 50-foot buffer zone as shown for Elkin.
We have a motion and a second for the 50-foot chalk line for the Elkin early voting site. When there's further discussion, if not, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Chairman, 50 foot.
I need the resolutions.
We need we have taken the votes on the 3 locations. Council, do we need to make a full, another vote for the resolution for the total?
I take the motions that you've done to include and take the appropriate measures to affect that action, which would be signed with resolution, so I don't think you do. I think you're good.
Thank you, thank you. On our agenda,
So, Mr. Chairman, if we can get the resolution for the official transfer of both the pilot and the Southwestfield precincts from, their previous locations, Pilot Mountain will be transferred to Pilot Mountain Rescue and EMS, and then Southwest Field will be transferred to Jessup Grove Baptist Church. This is the official resolution, and we were waiting on the church. So, you know, although this board had already voted, this is the resolution to transfer those two.
So that wouldn't take.
It wouldn't take an extra vote, we just need signatures.
Passing the resolution has already been voted on individually.
Yep. Okay.
Next on the list is precinct rental fees.
Yes, and, Clark had asked us to gather this information at the last meeting. Of course, we'll provide him this whole packet as well, but, this is the current prices and locations that we do pay a fee to. You see most are churches or community buildings, of course, but there is no rhyme or reason to these fees. And Cindy and I are not quite sure of the background and how these figures come to be. But you see one particular location there is getting paid for a non-election year.
Even though we don't use it.
Correct.
Maintain it and have it ready for the next year.
Right. But I am glad Clark asked about this because, I don't know that we want to do this now. It's up to the board, or if we want to wait and take this up in 2025. But we need some consistency, because this is a little troubling to me that it's no,
It looks like something that could have been done
it's just a lot.
Well, I was
20 years ago.
Well, I was gonna ask, how
think most
many
of
of
them
these
were.
did we inherit? Of this board and
Yeah.
under your directorship?
Well, Maple Grove, United Methodist Church, Stewart's Creek #2. Of course, Jessup Grove, but that's what we recommended was the 100 per election. Again, that's the consistencies you see.
Right.
And that is it. The others were already set.
They go back probably 2 generations of directors.
I'm sure.
And it's carried forward, and that was what what went into the contract between the Board of Elections, the county, and these entities.
And it's just stayed in the contract. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do think that $100 per election with what power and everything costs now, I do feel like that's a little low. But, again, this is not necessarily for action today. We just wanted to provide it to the board. If you all want to pick this up in 2025, it's totally up to you. The contracts are through the end of this year, signed, and we pay at one time at the end of the election year or the end of the year for this one particular location.
The rest of our locations are government buildings.
We do not pay, correct?
So, other than one of these locations, there will be no payment in the year 2025.
Correct.
So, new contract, other than one, would actually, there wouldn't be a contract for 2025.
But we would have it ready going into the election year 26,
Right.
and we could get everybody on the same page.
Did Southwest Field, did they give us that number?
You know, we gave them that number just based on what we've done since 2020,
So that's
and
the latest one.
there was no comment or question from the church, about that amount. They did sign the contract.
Well, 7 out of the 11 are at the $100
Mhm.
mark. So that is the
That's
majority.
the majority, yeah. And then you see the one church there is getting a lot more.
Yes. Yes.
Don't know what that was, but it's a very nice facility, very new facility, but,
Number
anyway, that was the amount before the new facility, so I'm not quite sure why that is.
One clarification, when we say, whenever it says here, $100 per election.
Mhm.
Is that per election year or for
That's
the hundred?
per election, so actually, that's not apples to apples. The third one on the list, you see 100 per election, that means if we have 3 elections this year, they're gonna get $300. The same as the first one. So you see, all those are the same because it's per election to where, yes, that one church is annually, so they're actually losing $100.
Right.
Because we had a second primary.
Okay.
So it's not as,
Like the second one there, even though they're getting money for non-election years, they're still getting less.
less because it's the whole year.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it is not the way it seemed when you first look at it.
We need
If they're getting,
consistency.
if they're getting $100 at the primary, $100 at the election.
Well, it's gonna be 3 this year.
3 this year for those that's per election. Mhm. So again, you don't have to take any action today, but, Clark did ask that we gather a report of what we're paying.
Good information. I don't think we need to take any action at this period of time with our contract in place. And 2025 not being an election year,
The June started out.
yes. It'll be for another set of eyes later. Thank you.
If you have to redraft any contracts or if they need review, I'm happy to do that.
Great, yeah, I definitely want you to review, yeah, sure. Yeah, Ed has done it in the past, and I know that he'll be happy for, for you too. And actually, Dwayne, before you leave today, I do have the contract with Jessup Grove, for you to sign, and, that way I can get a copy back to them.
Have we already signed policy?
Yeah,
I thought we had.
yeah, it's already been signed, and they have a copy.
We appreciate the organization, allowing us to do what we need to do, what we have to do in these communities.
And just not to take up any more time, but if you want to pass this around, this is a fantastic room that we're gonna have with pilot.
Especially
It's got the lighting in and everything else,
Wow.
it's just really,
that Southwest area, that give us, we couldn't fully satisfy the school board, but we met them halfway.
right.
We went as far as we could.
Yeah, it was a win-win,
Mhm.
win-win-win, so.
Yeah,
Well, they
that's,
might not look at it that way,
Well,
but we did what we could.
I think, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure they're reasonable people for the most part.
you know, we didn't have to pay rent at the school, but we had to pay 2 officers $25 an hour for the period of the election
Right,
day.
we won't have to pay off for.
No, there'll be no officers at the church, so again, we're paying some in rental, but that'll be it'll offset.
Yeah, we're a whole lot cheaper where we're at now.
Fantastic room.
It really is.
Commend
you
the
could
rest of the
not-
squad.
Ask for a better group to accommodate us, and they just want to know what we want. Every time we speak to them, it's just been wonderful. They're definitely looking at this from a community standpoint. They want to show off their facility, and they said there was no better way than voters, and let voters know that this is for the community. This facility is for them to be able to use, it's beyond the rescue squad, so
And we're fortunate to have 2 like that,
we are.
2 new ones,
Mhm.
that everybody seems to feel the same way.
And it seems to be in just a great combination of more veteran, volunteers, younger volunteers, and they all work so well together. So,
To the other churches that we have, do they have any reach out like the Southwest is claiming?
not that we know of, hadn't,
Not let, I mean, just in talking, might let them know that what they're doing.
what we'll do is take some photos and probably share it on our social media.
That might generate some
And that
questions.
will probably generate some, well, hey, did you see, you know? Speaking of, before I forget, please, look at our website. Don't go to the county to do it. Go to surrycountynCvotes.gov. It is phenomenal what Sydney did all of it.
Wow.
The company that we paid
What's the address?
SurryCountyNCVotes.gov
Oh,
altogether. Mm-hmm,
County, NC,
mm-hmm.
votes.
Not
Yeah.
yet. Mhm. But it's top to bottom until we're done, and it is now ours. We are independent of the
So-
county.
It sounds like we took maybe some ideas from the other group that helped get started
Absolutely.
and then
Built on it.
made it even better.
But the amount of hours that Sydney has put into this, no one knows, but it is so good. It is so customized to Surry County. It's exactly what we have been needing and not have to depend on, to burden another group of county staff. We can put the time and make it what we need it for that time. So we can have pop-ups come up to say, hey, the deadline for voter registration is, different features like that we weren't
Good
able to.
information.
Yeah.
For the county, and
Definitely.
we appreciate the support.
So check it out.
Funding for additional,
Absolutely, yeah, that's the Board of County Commissioners approved that funding, so we could do that ahead of the general.
See it pop up right now, absentee ballot.
Yeah, absentee by mail day.
In September the 6th.
Yeah, it's just, look at everything, and I encourage you to search it, look at all parts, because there might be something we haven't seen that we might need to know about, so. If there's something there that you think could be laid out better, let us know.
I got on the Facebook page last night and I was trying to go.
Hours.
Yeah, I didn't know that was
Oh,
Monday Mythbusters.
yeah.
That's Sydney.
And I sometimes do that at home.
Oh,
I will say this is a whole lot easier to read.
Oh, is that though?
I was just looking at it very quickly.
Mm-hmm. We just,
It's a good- it's a
at where
very
we
good
are
improvement.
in this country with elections, I think being independent just helps everyone. It
Mhm.
helps MIS, it helps us, helps the voters to be, we know what works for Surry County Board of Elections. So if we can put that out to the public more, we have more control. We can then communicate that to voters who call in or who need this or that. And it's just, but please take a look at all of it and let us know if you see something that doesn't. Because it's really, really fantastic. Long time coming.
Looks like.
next we have our MAC team appointment.
Uh,
Upcoming general election.
Yes, sir, and if you recall, this board did already approve those before the primaries. They have not changed. The only change I did want to make the board aware of is we did lose, 2 members. We lost a Democrat and a Republican. Of course, Jessica and Salem, no longer can serve. But we did have training last week for the MAC team. The other 4 members that this board already, approved to be MAC members. We had training last week. We have 2 facilities we're going to start starting tomorrow. Tomorrow's Wednesday, right?
It is.
Tomorrow and Thursday. So tomorrow we will be at Northern Hospital and then Thursday at, in Elton. So, they feel we got a good team. The only time it starts getting dicey is when we have early voting. That's our same pool of folks. So it'll just be some coordination on Sydney's part to shuffle some people around to get coverage so they can go to a MAC visit.
So later on, will we need to add 2 more
Possibly.
members or?
Possibly. We'll just have to see how that goes. And if so, we'll be having regular meetings. I'll just present it to the board to add additional names if so, but we honestly right now can't get anybody else to volunteer. We've asked some folks, but they're new and we understand the hesitance there, but we'd also put them with someone who is well trained. But, so far the 4 is all we can do.
Working.
That's working, yeah.
Great,
So I just wanted to let the board know that.
thank you.
Mhm.
We have a resolution for the pre-canvass absentee meeting date.
Yeah.
With anticipation, I guess, of, a lot of provision.
A few, just possibly, but, and honestly, I can't get it out of my head I did not put the word supplemental there, but I still put absentee. So that word should not be there. It should be pre-canvass meeting date because we no longer have supplemental absentee.
Right.
So what each board needs to do is adopt when they will hold their pre-canvass meeting. Personally, and from staff point of view, We feel like anything before, the night before canvas would be too soon. So we feel like sticking with that same time and date of 5 p.m. on Thursday night before canvas to do our, what we used to call supplemental absentee. Now it will be the pre-canvas meeting. That's where the provisionals will be approved or not. That's where any potential, let's say we're still waiting on a photo ID to come in to where that person said they would bring it back to the Board of Elections. That's the other business we would do at that meeting.
So then it's been at 5 o'clock, and
It's been at 5 o'clock. It's been on Thursday, the night before canvas, forever and ever, but it's just now, it can't be called supplemental absentee, and it's not a set time. It's up to each board to determine that. So I just want to get ahead of it, and it is on our schedule already, but we need to,
I think we need to have an earlier time.
know, because technically the people have till 5 o'clock to bring us those, exception forms. Or a copy of their driver's license.
Will we have any potential for possible hearings
Yes.
that would be supposed to be held before candidates?
Then that would need to be either the morning before, like we have had before, or we could do the Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday before the Thursday. But with provisional research for what we expect to have, I do not see how we could have a meeting before with you've got the hand count, you've got so much you have to do after election before that meeting that, you know, we feel like that's the best time for us. And that's what this board has done in the past,
Proceed with Thursday
at 5.
at 5.
Mhm.
But if we had a lot that would be already in our hands before 5, with the anticipation of more coming after 5.
Oh,
If
absolutely.
we started, let's say if we just blocked out and said potentially that we might have to start at 2. We might have hearings that we might have to have the day before.
And what we could do is notice that within 48 hours and we could change the time. If you all didn't want to say, we want to make it 2 o'clock right now.
But even if we created a range, would we still have
Based
to
on volume?
announce, just anticipating the volume of it?
Mhm.
Would we also have to notify in 48 hours as to specifically what time we will
Yes.
plan to meet?
But yes, what time the meeting begins. Right, Mark? We have to.
Yeah, now, you could do something like, say, we're gonna meet at 2, and if you're done at 2:15, and you gotta wait till 5, you can say, we're gonna recess till 5. You
Okay.
can do that.
But that's also with the anticipation, by backing it up, that we're going to have a possible heavy load to have behind us before the next day at 11 a.m. And you have to have a whole lot of stuff and paperwork at 11 a.m.
A lot.
available.
Yeah.
With abstracts that I feel like we need to try to give staff and our director as much time and opportunity, but still, we're not trying to cut into time that's precious to you all, that you're going to need to be working, but we need to possibly have that blocked out. I just started with a random number, 2 p.m.
Definitely, and then could you do this, Mark? Let's say we had 50. Very low number. But if we had 50, would they still come, meet and adjourn until 5?
Yeah.
Okay, and just do all 50 at 5?
Yeah,
Okay,
all you have to do is begin the meeting at the time you say you're gonna begin the meeting. And then if you say, look, we don't have anything so
Call the recess.
So, you know, it'd have to be a motion and second and approved, but you can say, let's recess till 5.
okay.
Like I say, with the potential hearing, that you're gonna have to put so much time that it takes for each hearing. The people might be there, and they might not.
Yeah. That's an unknown a lot of times.
And like I say, that might have to be there in that afternoon also. you might not have enough time starting at 8 a.m. or 8:30 Friday morning.
Mhm.
And your hearing can be part of this meeting.
Yeah.
But the hearing would have to be separately noticed as well.
Mhm.
That, you know, at
For
three
that
thirty, we're
challenge.
gonna have this challenge as part of our meeting.
Yes,
So your notice, you'd have to have a separate notice that's very
if
specific
a
to
hearing
your,
was within that.
if you have it.
But that is a
and
good
scheduled
idea
for
that we
time.
could, with that taken care of before canvas, to have that window might not be a bad idea.
What do you need with resolution right now?
We just need a motion, and I'll redo the resolution for the next meeting, but we need a motion as to what time you want to start the pre-canvas meeting, the day and the time. And then I can have the resolution, changed and ready for the next meeting, or by the end of this meeting.
With our discussion thus far that we had, what would you have possibly as a motion?
I would need to be worried in case we have to come in before 5. How does
Just state that, well.
No,
Mr. Payne, would you guide us a little bit?
yeah, no, because you have no idea if you're gonna have a recess or not, you would just say, let's schedule it for, you know, whatever time you pick and come here. And then based on the workload, you make a decision on whether you're gonna recess and to when. So your motion would be, I move that we have our pre-canvas meeting date set for that Thursday at X time, whatever time you guys think is appropriate.
Okay.
Because the decision for a recess or not is only made then during the meeting.
Right, and notice.
Yeah,
Before.
and you really can't say what it is before that, because that's when you gotta meet and then you can recess.
Mhm.
So you think when I made it 2, and then we don't have anything, we set for 5? So,
I would do it before two.
up now?
Before two?
I would not do it
No,
before
oh,
two,
yeah,
because we're gonna be,
Yeah.
yeah.
If we were to go with two, does that allow the team to get everything done that
If that time fit new deadline, we will make it work, yes.
What's convenient for you?
Well, no, that day, that period is just, we know that we're all here for as long as we're here, that's no problem.
obviously for the purpose of what we're trying to achieve here, if we determine that today, then you
It'll give us
know,
time.
everybody knows what they need to do to get ready
Correct.
for it. So
Correct, yeah.
with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we, call a meeting to begin at 2 p.m. on that Thursday for pre-canvas meeting date to allow us sufficient time to conduct all the duties and responsibilities that we would have.
Looks like November 14th.
It is, mhm.
Okay.
But canvas is the 15th.
Specifically 14th of November, starting at 2 p.m. It's my motion.
We have a motion on the floor to block out or have a scheduled meeting for Thursday, 2 p.m., November the 14th, for the pre-canvas meeting time. And we have a second. Do we have further discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor of setting the date for November the 14th for the pre-canvas meeting at 2 p.m., please say aye. 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 Motion approved. Now,
I'm gonna step out, and so this can be changed, and we go ahead and sign that today. You all will carry on, but I was, so we go ahead and take care of it.
be at ease for this, and then you're fine.
Want to say about 5?
Please, we'll have a 5-minute recess.
Yeah, we have some recess time.
I gotta say, Alan, you get an 8 or a 6, that's creative. You did.
Never will be simply.
Same bill too. will be an interesting time for sure. Oh, thank you.
I turned it down to 69 before the meeting, but it got hot.
Can't be too cool for me, so.
No, it's, ooh. It's funny, Jansen, oh, I charged. I look at his card every day now, of course. Oh, birds. So he's rented a bird scooter. Called him last night. After the third time he talked to me. And I said, I see the charges for, yeah.
I have a question. Was, I don't know if I can ask this or not, but if I am, I'll just shut up and go back over here, but, was Mr. Preacher submitted or not?
His name was emailed to me by the party chair of
So it
the
was
Surry
submitted.
County
Was
GOP.
submitted, yes, okay. Then he declined after whatever.
Well, it was submitted, but it was not submitted to the state party. That's the method it has to be submitted in. And it's 3 names, not 1. Probably, yes, we are. But, thank you. You're welcome. Appreciate that.
Okay, the reason I was asking anything because I know that John put his name down and I put my name down. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think Dwight Seal put his name down. And that's 3 names. But then John resigned or withdrew because he found out he became politics. Because they being on the board, as well they should. But anyway, so I reached out to our state chair, our district chair, and our local chair, and to no avail. That's why I had to say what I had to say because it's very important.
Right.
So that's why I didn't know if y'all could do anything. Don't want to overreach, but it's just.
Now, this
Chris
board
Dollars is a
can't.
different
Yeah. I'll just answer that much. This board has no authority to submit a name.
That's crazy. Well, somebody's got to be accountable on anything. It should be the ones that's. Yeah. Right.
That's the right place to look.
So what happened, we committed to last week was unseasonable for you all. It was like, and here too. And so, right, if you really got up, said, oh, we're in student. And I said, hey, why did you screw charge? I said, and the first one was more expensive. He said, well, I finally got to it and did it by the month.
Oh, that's great for my guy.
That's what you can say, is, hey, when you come home for fall break, I'll take a bite.
I was
You
thinking
can rent,
the same thing.
you can rent until then, but no, you're taking on a bite.
The weather,
That you already own.
the weather is great. 11 months out. So, riding a bike.
That's a hot nature.
Okay.
Yeah, that hot nature. So that child does not wear a coat. And, so he'd be on the bike year round. And if you feel good with him.
It would.
I'm
glad you did.
He said, I absolutely love my pop. That's great.
While we were in recess, Councilor, you're down to 1 week. Do we need to make the provisions?
He's wishful thinking.
But this is, I think, just a 2-code file, so I think we're okay.
We do have a few things. We do have a few things ahead of us, so I just want to prepare.
See, I drink on this all day long. I don't mind it hot. So I'll do 36. That's why I do a bottle. So it can still be.
Well, don't the doctor say you're supposed to drink 8 glasses a day?
Hey, Jansen. He drinks no water. Do you drink water at all, Jansen?
Yeah, some, but.
No, you can't, he doesn't.
It's hard to drink enough water.
He's gonna turn into sweet tea, that's what, and I need a sweet tea. Jansen will not. It's either drink nothing but water.
So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
mostly
And
water.
a whole lot of sugar.
Yeah, that's the downside.
Never. Okay, Drew, where are we? You wanna pass that, we've got that
Set
time
precedent.
updated, yep.
Anyway, give you Al for your thanks to God.
I knew you'd say that.
David, good to see you. Appreciate y'all coming.
Okay, have a signature page there for you.
Yes, sir.
Secretary?
That's just showing the 2 o'clock, time, Drew.
Okay, coming back to order, please. Yep. Other business.
One item of other business, I'll say real quickly, then I'll turn it over to Mark for a legal update, is the State Board of Elections has advised each director in each county to advise their board to block out the week after canvass. County canvass for potential recounts or protests or what have you, so don't plan any wonderful holiday vacations, Drew.
Yeah,
The week
I
after canvass.
travel so much.
I know.
That's Thanksgiving week.
Well, no, Thanksgiving's late. It's
It
the week
is.
before.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I thought the same thing, but Thanksgiving's actually,
28th.
yeah.
So the week 18th through 27th.
Mhm. So, don't go anywhere.
Well, if I'm in the Congo or somewhere, I'll call them.
Okay. All right, Mark, I'm sorry. We'll turn it now to legal update.
Okay, no, we're good. The speaker earlier today was, made a comment that, there's a lawsuit every day, and he actually overspoke a little bit, it's every other day. It's Thursday. It's Thursday, was one lawsuit against the State Board of Elections. And yesterday was another one.
Yes.
In order to talk about the one Thursday, I also need to talk about the one in Arizona. Also, every now and then, I try to remind my boards that, that I was a county attorney for 25 years. 17 of those was a Republican-led board, 8 of those was a Democrat-led board. And intentionally or unintentionally, completely unintentionally, I managed to annoy both sides. And that is, and frankly, it is part of the job description.
Yes.
So the first lawsuit we'll talk about is the one that was filed Thursday. And circles around the issue of, proof of citizenship. And it accurately, talks about, that the current legal landscape that we operate under, is mainly derives from federal and HAVA, about what we do require as far as citizenship. And that is, HAVA requires that there be on the registration form a certification that says you must be a citizen, and failure to do so has these consequences. And that has been, and there is federal cases that say that is what you must say, and you must say that. That is the I guess the first and last of your citizenship requirement. North Carolina has a statute that's related to proof of citizenship in this way. As of July of this year, every person who, well, let me back up. County clerks of court are required to keep a master list of everyone who certifies, and it's a certification that's very similar to the certification that was talked about for voter registration, who certify that they are exempt from jury duty because they're not citizens. And that statute further says that first, clerks of court need to keep a master list of that, and election directors need to use that information. Now, the statute doesn't say exactly how and what the procedure is, but basically they're supposed to use that information to remove anyone who is on the voter list who is certified that they're not a citizen through this, and has so certified on the form where they seek to be excused from being a juror. That law came into effect July 1 of this year. I believe, just from anecdotal information, that several clerks started compiling this information before that. And what happened is, I don't know if it was just the state board Republican Party, or if it's the state and the National Republican Party, sent a public records request to the state board saying, have you complied with this, and seeking certain specific information. As of Thursday, they filed this lawsuit, which basically what this lawsuit is, it's a public records request demand. It's saying we haven't got the public records that we asked for, and we need them. And it also includes, and it's sort of the lesson for the day is don't pay attention to what headlines say when they're talking about lawsuits. Because every lawsuit, you got to dig into it and see exactly what's going on, because they're all a little bit more, or a lot more complicated than what the headline says. And so the interesting thing about this lawsuit is what they asked for. They say we asked for this information on July 10th. As of last Thursday, we haven't gotten that information, and so we're asking for a declaratory judgment, which is a kind of court ruling that says there's a controversy here. This is my judicial finding on that legal issue. So a declaratory judgment that that the state board of elections is required to release this information, and they ask for a timetable of that. And the timetable they ask for is before September 6th, which is when
Absentee ballot.
absentee ballot fill out, which is a pretty fairly logical drop dead to. Now there are actually two deadlines we got to talk about this lawsuit. One is there's a federal law that also says that there's not much that severely restricts what state and local boards of elections or election directors can do as within 90 days of an election. It is based upon information I've received. One of the arguments they're going to make is that this is not a thing that that can happen within the 90-day restrictions. Because we're 73 days, 70 days, 70 days from election. So the first thing is they want a declaratory judgment saying we want the state to release that information. I have seen a press release from the state. I think a lot of people have.
Yeah.
Where they say, well, we've been negotiating back and forth trying to understand what their public records request is, and that's why we haven't complied. And saying, but we do know we have done the component of this that says how many people have filed a certification saying they're not citizens, and it's across the state of North Carolina, it's 9 people.
And that 9 people were from the reports, the list from the clerks of court.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
9 people that were registered to vote.
Statewide.
That were registered to vote
And also.
and also had filed a certificate saying I don't have to be on a jury because I'm not a citizen.
So if I may, Mark,
Yeah.
excuse me. So when they registered to vote, they would have been requested to either to attest that they were citizens. And so there's another conflict.
Yeah, what I don't know is the timing.
Right.
But those people fibbed one time or another.
Exactly.
They either certified that they could vote and then told the court that they couldn't because they're not a citizen, or they registered to vote and then they told and then they told the courts that they weren't a citizen. Now, it's conceivable, depending on the time frame in this, that they could have become naturalized in the meantime. That's a possibility, and we don't know those numbers, but it looks like 9 people fit one way or the other. And the director has asked the clerk of court directly if any of those 9 fell within Surry County, and I understand the answer is no.
And I confirmed that with the state board, who had already received the list from the clerk of court the first week of August, and it was also 0.
Okay, so and my recollection of the press releases is that they fully intend to comply with the request. They said that we have it to date because of these reasons. The other thing that this declaratory judgment does is ask for a declaratory judgment from the court directing the state board of elections to comply with the North Carolina statute that requires them to do what they've said in their press release that they're going to do. And I think my saying that tells you that I anticipate that the state board of elections is going to say that that is premature to make that request and make a motion to deny that. What's interesting about this lawsuit is it says that stuff needs to happen before September sixth. It was filed Thursday,
August the 22nd.
August the 22nd. And it makes no request for a temporary restraining order, preliminary injunction, or anything that would accelerate a court to review it. So until and unless that gets filed, and it's a lot harder to do after the fact, the state has until September 22nd to answer, which is well after September 3rd. And and frankly, yeah, and then it falls on the day, it's 30 days. They have 30 days. And if that falls on a weekend, it's the first business day after. And frankly, they could ask for a continuance and they wouldn't have to reply to this until, you know, a few days before election. So, that was a long introduction to this lawsuit. When the finale is, as far as it's concerned, as it relates to Surry County, there are apparently no certifications of non-citizenship for jury duty that would be applicable, and so Surry County has perforce complied with that statute. And frankly, I don't see the statute going anywhere because of the timing issues.
Question mark. Say these 9 that they have found to have certified and registered, and now they're saying they're not citizens. Does that take them, even within the 90 days, does that take them off the road? Can they be removed with this state law?
Yeah, there's a wording about what kind of evidence within the 90 days you can with. Not
Yeah.
specific, but some type
Yeah.
of individualized, I think that's the word.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And if you've got individualized evidence, in other words,
I don't know what that means.
that's personally specific
To that person.
Mhm.
not, hey, here's a list, or hey, let's do some homework. But if you go, Joe Smith made this certification that he's not a citizen, and he's on the list. And then the on the election side, you remove them from the voting list.
Okay.
Could that be also a voting violation that's a criminal offense? Possibly. Now, if he is a citizen and told the courts that he wasn't, that's definitely a criminal offense, and it's also enforceable through contempt, which is, that's a pretty big stick. Now, if it's the other way around, it would be election fraud, and it's not a small stick. It's still a big stick. It's still pretty intense. And that is the only proof of citizenship issue that is currently in front of the state of North Carolina, because that's the only statute that we have that relates to that topic. And you have the federal statutes that are in place. And there's more at that issue, but that's not at this, as of 4/39, is not an issue that's in front of this board.
Mark, you answered a important question that I had as I've been thinking, sharing over the last couple of weeks. But with the federal law clearly stating that you cannot remove a registered voter from the voter rolls within the 90 days of the election, again, just thinking common sense law, I couldn't imagine that law meant that if you identify a person and you have the evidence that they are an unlawful registered voter, that you can't that you could not remove them. That didn't make sense to me. And you're saying exactly what I was hoping that would be the case, is that, that even though the federal law says what it says, it doesn't mean that if somebody is unlawfully registered, that they shouldn't be removed. So,
And it goes back to the individualized, and you guys have had this, every voter challenge you have
Mhm.
is from a very basic statute that's been in place for a long time and is routinely enforced, because one of those reasons is that person is not eligible to vote.
Mhm.
Now, what you usually see is a residence issue, or you guys have seen a criminal, is not a citizen by virtue of a felony.
Yeah.
So you've seen that exact mechanism, which is not on this particular citizenship issue. So that, that is in place and that hasn't changed, and it can be done. And that's the process you would use if you had personalized, individualized information. Okay.
thank you. That clears my mind.
The other lawsuit, that was filed yesterday is also going to be somewhat familiar to you guys, because we've had conversations about that topic. It is, it relates to a issue that was presented to this State Board of Elections, and we've talked about here before, on the fact that the certification that North Carolina was pushing out to voters for registration did not include that certification language that HAVA says they have to. According to this complaint, they say that 225,000 people registered to vote under the form that was erroneously drafted. We talked about this, and I don't think there wasn't any confusion on the part of this board that was an error. And my read of what the board did, the state board, that they recognized that was an error, and they took some time to fix it. And if I think that if I were the counsel for the state board, I would have recommended moving quicker. And I think if you guys were the state board, you would have also recommended moving quicker.
Absolutely.
I frankly don't think there's not any statutory or precedence or guidance as to how quickly that has to be corrected. Unless you got like an estoppel claim or a laches claim, which is an argument we don't really need to get into. But what the complaint says is that the corrective measures that the state board took were insufficient to the point of being illegal. And they were insufficient because, as you recall, the cure was, when people vote, we have voter ID in North Carolina. When people vote, they're going to have to show an ID, which is going to then have the corrective, the information that is missing from the certificate, and you'll be able to move forward. And yeah.
Well, we'll get to that in a minute.
And that in effect over a life cycle, these errors are going to be corrected. One thing I don't think the state board issue raised, which I think they will in the context of this lawsuit, is there collateral damage, as it were, in trying to correct 225,000 voter registrations, who did not do any misrepresentation. They didn't, they just came in and filled out the form that was in front of them. And would that have a chilling effect or unintended consequences in making those, because what this complaint is apparently asking for is to go back and verify every one of those 225,000, arguments, complaints. Now, my opinion, and this is my opinion on the legal issues. I think the 90-day issue does come into play on that. And I do think that there is at this point, an administrative argument that you do have collateral damage, that you would have, that you have that issue. And I'm not sure exactly how that would play out in front of a court, but that's the complaint you have right now. Right now, all you have is a complaint. There's no determination as to where it's going to go from there. And this complaint does ask for a preliminary injunction, but it doesn't do anything about scheduling, and it doesn't do anything about an accelerated schedule. So again, absent further motions or actions in this court case, if it takes the normal course of business, you're looking for a decision come October, which I think creates which would present this board with a amazingly difficult job of having to, whatever Surry County's portion of those 225, recertify all of it. But right now, we don't know where that's going to go. But and it was just filed yesterday, so there's a whole lot of uncertainty with that.
And it was when, October what? Or you just say mid-October?
I just sometime in October.
Okay.
If it plays out the way a case in court normally plays out, and as of right now, there's nothing in the file except the complaint, and so there's nothing that would move, that would accelerate that hearing.
So that's a projection, obviously, based on
Yeah,
experience.
And if the plaintiffs, who are the National Republican Party and the State Republican Party, don't do anything to successfully accelerate that time frame, I would then I think the logical response from the State Board of Elections is, let's talk about this after the election, which they could, if there's no pushback, they would be successful in that. Obviously, I think there's good likelihood there'll be at least some pushback.
Voting would have already commenced with absentee and early voting.
And early, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, somebody in the state of North Carolina will have votes in place on September 6th. I think September 7th. Right. So as soon as they mail out, something's going to come back.
Mm-hmm.
So, on both of these issues, that's a timetable that creates all kinds of issues right now for the courts and possibly down the road for us.
I'm sure.
Yeah. The other thing that I feel like I ought to talk about is this Arizona case, and I don't usually talk about anything other than North Carolina because things other than North Carolina usually don't mean anything at all to us. And this, at this point, still only is tangentially related to you guys. But the issue of proof of citizenship and the requirements thereof are ripe in this Arizona case. Now, what Arizona did is, okay, as an aside, you guys have heard me complain about the drafting of some North Carolina laws. I take it all back. The Arizona statute is
supplanted.
Is just really awkwardly written. And anything I say about that Arizona statute is place question marks and you know, I think that's what it says, or this is what it seems to say, because it's not a very artfully written statute. But what it seems to say, and it was passed 2 years ago, but it hasn't been any attempt to implement it till this year. But what it says is it says it does a couple of different things. One, it seems to say that the state can have a registration in addition to any other registrations, including the federal register to vote form. The federal register to vote form is what we've talked about before. And this seems to say that the state of Arizona can have one as well. And that the state of Arizona form must contain a requirement for a proof of citizenship, which I think it limits, it says is birth certificate, passport, or naturalization papers. And then it says in another provision, so that's one provision, that's, here, I've got, that is, Arizona Revised Statute annotated 16-121.01 subparagraph C. There's also a subparagraph E, which says that if you do not use the Arizona form and you vote, and there's not a proof of citizenship that is associated with your name, then you can vote, but your vote will not count towards the presidential election. Now, the obvious question there is, how is it that you can vote for senator and governor and lieutenant governor, but not president, because of an assertion that you haven't proven citizenship, which is you're all in or you're all out. Right. So that component strikes me as odd, but that's one of the more clearly written phrases. That's exactly what it says right there. And so that was a lawsuit followed from that. That lawsuit is now on appeal to the Ninth Circuit. And at the lower court, they said, you know, what happens when you have an appeal is there's a request for a stay or not. A stay simply means, okay, you're challenging this law. In the meantime, while we're waiting for it to get heard, does the law apply or not apply? What was in place was a stay of the law in its entirety, saying, okay, that law does not apply until it goes on appeal and it gets resolved. That's probably more typical than otherwise, but stays are up to the judge. They can go whichever way they want to. And what you probably read about in the news is that the appeal of the stay went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court lifted the stay in part and upheld it in part. And that's what the headline says. So that headline doesn't help you at all. So, yeah, this is the entire order. And it's an unsigned order, which probably has some meaning, but it doesn't change the effect. But the order says that 16-121.01C, that stay is lifted, which means Arizona can register folks under its state provision, which asks for proof of citizenship. The part that the stay was not lifted, in other words, the stay remains, is the second part, which says if you don't use the state form, your presidential vote doesn't count. So it really didn't, it said you can use the Arizona form and that's fine. And if people want to do that, that's fine. But but if they use the federal form that's in place or the Arizona form, either way, the vote is counted just the same. So it really doesn't, it really doesn't change anything, which is frankly what judges tend to do until they have to decide something. So there's nothing really unusual about that, but I've seen it played in the press, on headlines, as having some very significant meaning. And at this point, I don't think it does. Arizona has a law that if it's deemed successful, it would have very significant impact because it could show that that proof of citizenship is one area where states can have more restrictive requirements than the feds. And that's a pretty significant thing. And that would be frankly, a very significant change from the way it is currently on this topic and on most election topics. Now, that would mean that the state of North Carolina could then do something about that, but that's not a play right now, and not going to be a play. And I can't imagine the state of North Carolina would do something, maybe even if they wanted to, until the Arizona case is resolved more definitively one way or the other. So my legal opinion is that you guys just keep on chugging the way you've been chugging, and that you don't have any real play to do something otherwise. But these are a lot of things that are out there on the horizon that you need to be aware of, and you need I need to continue to monitor.
On the, I don't know if you know this process, and I could talk to Alice at the court, but I'm curious as to when they submit to be excused, is it a form that checks the reason, that you check your reason? And that I'm not a U.S. citizen, or do they write something in and then do they?
It's a question on the juror registration form. So just as Mark said,
Yeah.
much like it is on the voter registration form.
Same type of, if you
It's,
answer this falsely and
Yeah,
that kind of.
But that's not specific to, my recollection. I just filled out a form for my daughter. Her reason is not that she's not a citizen. As I recall, it's a general certification saying everything on this form is correct.
Yeah.
And I certified, and so certified.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think there's a check and there is a block to say what, state your reason here. It's a 2-page form, and half of it is boilerplate. More than half of it's boilerplate. It's a fairly simple form.
Okay.
and as I've tried to communicate clearly to everybody in the last couple of weeks, and with these lawsuits that have come up, both of those processes are passive at best. And it is what we're dealing with, but it's passive, and neither one verifies citizenship. It just doesn't meet the litmus test of, verifying. And over these last 2 weeks, as I've shared information, Mark, I know you were on the tail end of that, but my first question is, and I'm glad you're here, because a lot of things going on legally, and I know not all of them are happening in North Carolina, but I do see a pattern taking place around the country with these lawsuits against states and their state election boards of making changes and strengthening and making the laws more strict. It's just, at least from what I'm reading, I'm seeing it happen in a multitude of states. And it's only reasonable to at least be prepared that some of this, or all of this, is going to come to North Carolina at some point in time. But one of my questions is, I know what the federal law says, I know what the state law says about what we are to do to attempt to determine if someone is a lawful citizen. Can we view that as a minimum requirement and not a maximum requirement? And I'll, maybe before you answer, if you think about it.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Yeah, in other words, the voter registration form, which clearly we've gone 20+ years of not complying with the law. And I know everyone here wants to comply with the law. But due to other circumstances, we weren't. And we can't change the past, but we can now deal with, with it going forward. It's that same thing that when you read the law and the requirement of a voter registration where the person has to attest that they are a citizen of this country. And then also the law that went into effect in the state July the 1st, which requires the clerk of courts to report anyone who on the juror registration form says, I'm not a citizen. Both of those, when you think about it, what unlawful voter or unlawful citizen or unlawful person in this country, what percentage of that group is going to say, I'm not a citizen? It just common sense says it's going to be few to none. And the only way we will ever know for sure is if there is a true verification of citizenship. And I draw, when, to be critical, but when we learn that we're not following the law that has been in place for over 20 years, why do we have any notion that an illegal person in this country is going to follow the law because they're already breaking the law by being here? So it seems common sense to me that this passive request, which albeit is what we have, is just far from what was intended when the U.S. Constitution was written and ratified, and the North Carolina Constitution was written and ratified a few years later, that it clearly states in the U.S. Constitution that only a citizen of this country can vote. And I like North Carolina's constitutional language because it defines a citizen by saying that you can vote if you were born in the United States or have been naturalized into the United States, and you must be at least 18 years of age. And to me, that means more about what defines a citizen than even the U.S. Constitution does, because it just uses the word citizen. I've been pondering this for 2 weeks as I think about the Constitution of both the U.S. and the North Carolina clearly state who can vote. And we're not determining. And it's this body, it's our county board of elections that bears the sole responsibility and the sworn oath before God, constitutions, federal and state laws, that we're to ensure that we are complying with the law. And I feel it's a similar case where we're not, and it's not our intention to not, but it's a very similar case as HAVA, where we went 20+ years without following the law. Now we are, and we did discuss this last year, and it didn't pass the resolution earlier this year, and that was the catalyst of it, was HAVA, and also the North Carolina law that it corresponds with that. But Constitutional law trumps all of that, supersedes all of that in its relevance and in its importance. And we're not doing, in my view, as a board, we're not doing what I feel we can do and maybe should do to make sure that every voter in Surry County that votes is a citizen of this country. And so we have to continue to do what we've been doing with voter registration forms and having somebody attest. Clerk of courts has to do their job based on state law. But why can't we consider doing one extra step that satisfies the U.S. Constitution and the North Carolina Constitution as it defines citizenship and clearly says only a citizen can vote? Can we take an extra step to ensure that? For several reasons. One, because it's the right thing to do as to what we're charged to do. As I shared with you too, I often go back to our sworn oath and I read it again and I read it again. And each time I read it and have read it in the last 2 weeks, I feel like it's saying, and Mr. Payne will correct me, I'm sure, that we're not doing everything that we should do to ensure that our elections are free of risk. And I say that because just a few years ago, federal government declared that elections are critical infrastructure in this country, critical in the sense of upholding our constitutional republic and its structure. And that, when we're talking about critical infrastructure, either from a private sector or a public sector, it basically boils down to we are charged to eliminate any and all risk that cause the critical infrastructure to fail. That's what the federal government has said. It's critical infrastructure. Therefore, from our viewpoint, it's critical infrastructure in the county. And the only way to ensure critical infrastructure stays in place is to eliminate any and all risk of that critical infrastructure. And so with that, I'm asking for guidance as to, can we take that extra step of ensuring citizenship? And if we can, there is a path to do that. And from what I've read, there are parties, maybe not boards of elections that I could find, but there are local government entities that are taking this path to verify citizenship for other reasons, for federal, state benefits, federal benefits. Well, the Board of Elections is providing a benefit of overseeing the elections to ensure that the critical infrastructure is sound for every lawful citizen in the county. And the only thing that will verify that is with a request, an inquiry to the Department of Health, up to DHS. And there's a federal law that says they must respond to each and every inquiry of an approved entity. And we don't know if we are approved yet, but we can find out real fast because, as I said, that either allows us to take the next step or it just kills it dead in the water right from the get-go. But there's only one way, and a Social Security number does not do it. I used to think when we got into this issue of HAVA that we have solved the problem. In most cases, we'll get driver's license or the last 4 digits of social, and anybody that can't provide that should, one, be a red flag to us, because if they don't have a Social Security number, that in itself does not necessarily determine citizenship, because anybody in this country with a green card, they're not citizens. Social Security Department issues a Social Security number so they can collect taxes from their wages. It dawned on me as I started looking at that, I thought, wait a minute now. Okay, then there's an exception. So Social Security number does not guarantee citizenship in any way, shape, or form. It may for a lot of people, but for people who are here on a green card and are employed and are required to pay Social Security taxes to the Social Security Administration are not citizens of this country, but they've got a Social Security card and a number.
And I think I asked this before, so forgive me, but who would not have a social? What group?
Somebody not born in this country.
Is there any other persons or any other
Well,
category?
Very old folks who live in the rural America, there's,
Well, that was what
I think there's, I have no, that
I don't
number of
accept
folks is shrinking, but
Right.
yeah, I think back in the day, there were a lot of folks that were born and raised and
When I
Never
was
bothered.
in high school, they was people that didn't have a social security
Yeah.
number when I was 18.
Yeah.
Just lived here all their lives.
There is a group. The Amish, as by and large, do not have Social Security numbers because they don't have birth certificates. They do not issue a birth certificate.
And theoretically, they're not going to be voting.
That's
They are not
And they
going to be
don't vote.
participating in government.
That's true.
Let me,
They not take it?
let me give you a few minutes to,
Take a break.
and let me ask this, whenever a voter registration is submitted with a name, the last four digits of the social, that goes into what system for verification where that name and those four last digits may pull up a flag that this person, they've got a social, but they are not citizens.
That's the DMV portion.
That's the DMV. So our voter registration goes through a DMV check.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever it goes through the state system,
Yes,
it's checked so that
to verify that last
they're
four
not.
digits.
And then does that flag?
Yes.
It does not.
To my knowledge, it does not flag if they are a citizen or a non-citizen.
Oh, no, not citizen, no.
Does it flag it? Does it?
now, DMV doesn't know.
No.
No, I was gonna say, no, they,
But if it goes through a system, if it goes through Social Security, does it go anywhere into the Social Security system for verification? Does the state system, the state board of elections go
it's through a
into
matching system,
a matching?
but, yeah.
Because I've heard you say, and I think Sydney does maybe more of this. If somebody gives their last four digits of their social at the time of voter registration, she does run that through the SSA just to verify a match of name
And
and Social Security.
social. Mhm.
Okay, so we are doing that. But at the same time, that does not verify citizenship.
Well, no, I mean, that's
Yeah.
not how we know.
Okay,
Sydney?
just wondering about that because
My biggest concern is,
Does it go through social security to verify?
Because it
The
tracks
last
their
four?
social and their driver's license, either or, but.
Mhm. So that's the two entities, but of course, it just tells us either it does or doesn't verify, but it doesn't give
Valid or
us,
invalid.
and that's it.
which is an important step. I mean, at least under HAVA and the corresponding North Carolina, we're doing that.
Because then we,
And sometimes it will take a little longer, say if somebody's got married and their name changed, it'll take a little longer to check, and then if you can actually go and check that, oh, City Bettsall is actually City Romine, you can see all the, like, the same information, that sort of
Gotcha.
thing. Yeah, it checks through both. They put both, or either or, yeah.
As I thought about it, I've been confident based on the conversations we've all had, particularly since, February of this year when we, signed the resolution that we're doing the right thing. It just doesn't prove citizenship. And that's frustrating when you read, the definition of a citizen in both our constitutions, and we take the sworn oath before God, country, and state to uphold the laws. I'm suggesting we're not in that sense.
Mhm.
We're working within the system that we have, but again, going back, is that a minimum requirement of us? And if, much like the example Mark you gave about Arizona, they're trying to pass a state law that really supersedes federal law, which is interesting in itself, but we're not talking about having to pass a law, because we've got the constitutions that support what we would do if we were to take that step in registering with DHS, see if we, receive approval as a board of elections. Because you got to state what service you're providing and the benefits that you're providing, and we can do that. It's just a question: is it acceptable to them? And if it is, we can show our citizens and take away any of the chatter about proof of citizenship with one fairly easy step, because the law supports us, the federal law and the constitutional law all kind of align in taking this step.
Mhm.
And not that we're looking to thump our chest, but, as I talk with people at our state conference, I feel better and better about this board every day. And I'm not being critical of them. I just hear too many people that don't seem to know the law, and in many cases aren't even following the law. And I think, wow, we're really doing an excellent job. Not to thump our own chest, but it's true for a lot of reasons. So with all that said, if we don't have a restriction of being able to do more, that doesn't mean we should, if it's the right thing to do. Because, again, our two constitutions say only citizens can vote, period.
But of course, my question is,
Yes.
Well, I mean,
can a board, county board
Do
do
more.
that without
on this
I mean,
topic,
my concern is that gonna be, are we doing it to every single registration? Or are we doing it to certain registrations, and what's that litmus test?
To eliminate this, thought of profiling or any discrimination, you have to do it for everybody.
Right,
Every registered voter. Now, Surry County, it's not a huge county, but it's not a tiny county either. So eventually, over time, yeah, exactly. So over time, obviously, it's easy when new registrations come in, because then you can send that off immediately to DHS and get an inquiry and get an answer back, and yes, they are a citizen. Going back to people who've been registered for the last 40, 50 years, I mean, obviously it would take time to get through all 40-some thousand registered voters to determine. We can't count on someone's attestment. I'm sorry, it just, if they're unlawful, they're not going to attest, because that is a immediate penalty and removal to go to jail and we eventually be deported from this country. But if we can take the extra step, and we agree to take the extra step, at least to the point of registering and see if our registration is acceptable, why would we not want to do that? Considering our oath and
my question is the word, powers and duties of the county boards of elections, number one, to make and issue such rules, regulations, and instructions not inconsistent with law.
Okay.
So what does that mean?
yeah,
Does that mean
well, and
law or North Carolina law?
Well, no,
well,
it's one of
it's
those-
it's everybody.
Yeah, and it's every law.
Okay. In addition to what I said at the very beginning of this conversation,
Yes, sir.
uh, I think it's a really good question, and I think that it's a good thing that we're going to have this long and detailed discussion, because I think there's a lot of things that are misunderstood out there, and you really hit
the nub of it, in the very first thing he says, can we, in this particular instance, can we treat what we're doing now as the minimum and go above, yeah, above that? And and again, I just give you guys advice. I don't tell you what to do. But my legal opinion is that in this instance, you can't. And it needs an explanation because it's not, because other places, you should thump your own chest because there are a lot of things that you do better than other boards of elections that I've seen. And if you're doing something different, you must be going above and beyond, or all of them are doing it wrong. So yeah, I mean, it's a very important question. And here's the reason why it's a legal basis, why I don't think you really can in this instance. And the simplest way to say it is, I don't think that you can demand of the citizens of Surry County put restrictions on their voting that are more restrictive than they are in the rest of the state. And because what you're doing is you're saying the people and the citizens of Surry County, we're putting an extra responsibility on them that is more restrictive than it is in the rest of the state. And so we are, to whatever degree, making it more difficult or putting one more burden in front of. Now, I'm not talking about the rationality or reason
Oh,
for
no,
this,
no, I know.
but you're putting an additional restriction on that franchise. And so you're saying that the folks in Surry County have a higher hurdle to meet to be able to vote than the people in Stokes and Forsyth.
But do they really, Mark? And you know, in all due respect, I appreciate everything you're saying. The burden is the same for every citizen in the state, and that is because of the U.S. Constitution and what the North Carolina Constitution says. So the burden's the same. And I thought about what you were saying. I thought, you know, I can see our state board looking at this and say, you know what, there's nothing that allows you to put an additional unfair burden on the voter. I thought, that's right. And we're not going to.
Yeah.
Because if we do it, we're not asking the voter to give us anything more than what is required currently. And that is a test that I'm a citizen, which is blind trust in its clearest form and is in no way verification. So, and I keep going back to what the Constitution says.
Yeah. And again, I think even if there's a rational basis for it, in other words, would it pass a constitutional muster? I don't think I know enough right now to say yes or no, but I do think there's collateral damage in that we haven't even quite calculated yet. One of the damage is I don't know that there's the resources, because again, I think that if you implement that in Surry County, then it's something that could arguably be implemented in all 100 counties. And I do not think that there are the administrative resources to comply with that. And from what I can see, I don't think DHS has anywhere close to the resources to do that either, because up to a few weeks ago, nobody at DHS was designated to see if people are citizens for voting eligibility. And that body, in fact, I'm not sure if anybody at DHS is actually assigned the duty of verification. So that's an administrative thing on the side. What I think is the issue here is the Arizona issue. I think that if you look at the body of law right now, that what this case of the law is right now And that's, again, that's what you guys have sworn to do, is to uphold the law, which is a changing thing. But the law right now is that that certification, the courts and the statutes have said that certification satisfies that role.
That's the law of the land.
Yeah, that the law of the land is that certification is sufficient and is that it's lawful. Is it the maximal way to do it? Of course not. But people determine that the maximal way to do things isn't legally required all the time. I mean, we've talked about one. Now, the motivations are different, but there's nothing that you don't have to prove that you're not a citizen to get out of jury duty. You just have to say it.
That was my
Yeah,
question.
It's blind trust.
And now this is an odd example, but it's just one I happen to know about. If you want to start a bank in North Carolina, I mean, in the United States, you fill out a form, you got to go to banking school. It's a pretty complicated process, and you got to be a citizen. You don't have to prove you're a citizen to own a bank. There are lots of things where they just say the certification is sufficient because there is a rational basis for it. And what you have here, and this goes to the very unique role that local boards of elections have, and frankly, the restrictions that are put on you as a local board of elections, is that you can't step outside of the frame in a lot of things. And right now, what the federal law has, the courts have said that does take the field as far as proof of citizenship measures are involved. As the law is right now, that Arizona law is not lawful because the state, the federal law is what we say is sufficient, and what has been upheld in the courts is sufficient, is the way to do it. Anything else is overly burdensome. So right this minute, I don't think that this body has the authority it's one place where they've said this, here's the line, you're out of bounds, And what Arizona is trying to do, what their lawyers are trying to do in the appeal is say, we want you to change that federal law and change your mind, which courts do not frequently, but they sure do, and say that states can take the field in that topic. But as of right this minute, that's not where it is.
And are you saying that constitutional law doesn't allow us to do that either?
Constitutional law, yeah, actually I am. And it may sound odd, but yes, because you can't do it a way other than the way that has been approved. I mean, there may be
This body.
this body. There may be other ways that are more efficient ways to do a lot of the things that you do. But the way this book is put together, is the idea is consistency. The idea is that if you vote in Surry County, you have the exact same voting hurdles and responsibilities that you do in Stokes County and Forsyth County and Guilford County. And that even if there might be three ways to get to a point, we say this is the way you take, then that is the way you have to take. And I don't think that this body, even if Arizona, let's say if Arizona is successful and the court says, yes, states can do it, I still don't think you guys can do anything unless there's a statute that changes that. Right now, there is a statute that says if somebody does a certification, the jury certification, you can take these actions. Are there other things that they could possibly do? Uh, I'm sure if you gave me the task, you know, find something that would not, create a constitutional issue, yeah. But only on the state level, that this body here can't do it. And I do think that sort of the practical impact is a legal consideration, because I do not think, and I could be wrong, because I've been looking into this issue for maybe a week to 10 days. And there's a lot of things about the Homeland Security Department that I don't know. But I think that this is one of those things that we talked about before, you're either all in or not. I don't think there's any way to parse the population and do this other than say everybody. And again, for the reasons I've just said, I don't think that Surry County can do something that you don't do in the other 99. So if you do that, it's statewide, and I feel confident that they're not the actual resources. Now, what happens if you say, what's the voting population in North Carolina?
7,600,000.
Oh, I was about to say 8.
You're good.
Close. Yeah, there you go. If Department of Homeland Security got 7 million requests for verification of citizenship, I don't think they could. I don't think they have the personnel to do that within a election year, much less within a time frame.
Yeah.
More than that, as it is right now, I don't think they even have access to all the information. Because I think what they have, they've got green cards, they've got naturalizations. What they don't have is information about people who are Joe citizen or illegal or undocumented.
There are some shortcomings.
Yeah,
And reading the SAVE Act and reading the report from DHS in 2019, they had over 17,000 inquiries that they responded to. 17 million inquiries that they responded to. DHS, confirming citizenship. Now, I don't know.
What entities? I'm just curious.
Well, it's welfare benefits. I mean, you know.
DSS,
Yeah, DSS is by far the biggest.
number one.
Yes.
Some law enforcement.
Law enforcement. So it went in over 17 billion. In 2020, it was over 19 billion. And in 2021, which is the last year that I could find any information on, was over 21 million inquiries. So they're increasing. But you're right, Mark. I mean, if we went to them with 7 million up front, or even if we went to them with 40,000 up front, just for Surry County, it would take them a while to respond. But the federal law says you must respond to the inquiry, and it must be.
But it doesn't say how long.
Doesn't say how long. But you know, social services around the states that are inquiring, I don't know how long it's taking them. And there may be, that Surry County may already be inquiring to confirm citizenship for DSS.
Well, I guess they would have to.
I don't know how you could.
It would surprise me if it hadn't popped up.
Yeah.
You know, but I wouldn't know.
It's not foolproof,
Yeah.
but it is a path that certainly is verifying citizenship and is something, which is something we're not doing.
But to me, that is the secondary issue, because the primary issue, I think, is the one that is the box that you guys, I don't see a way you guys could get out of this box, and that is that Surry County can't put any restrictions, whether they're deemed reasonable, rational, logical, or not, that are more restrictive than others. And think of the lawsuit that you would see. Okay. In Surry County, you have to show proof of citizenship.
We're not gonna ask the citizens to. The putting the burden on the voter, I knew would be the first thing that anything coming from the state would shoot down, because you can't put a different burden on the people in this county that you put the others, but that's asking them, show me proof, which is valid passport, an original birth certificate, or show us proof of naturalization papers.
Yeah, and putting the burden on staff to do the same thing has the same effect. It says that, okay, this is a showing that must be made before a Surry County citizen can vote that someone else doesn't do. And what you're gonna have is whoever represents those people who can't hit those targets are gonna say that is discriminatory. It's the same thing as a poll tax here and not a poll tax there. It has a chilling effect on some level of voters. So Surry County voters vote does not mean as much as it does other places, because there's this extra hurdle, I guess is the best word. I didn't want to say something that blocks it. Now, again, what I do is give advice, but I feel pretty strongly that this is one area. There's some areas where you guys got discretion, and again, this is the weird thing about boards of elections. You guys are different from every other board, and for a reason. But the design is to make sure that every voter in North Carolina has the same voting experience and access, and that to me, because of the nature of law, and some of those folks that are advocating, I've gone to some of those sites, they actually admit that that's not, what we really think ought to happen is the law ought to change. They've said that, the law is right now and it's a stupid law, but they have said that's the law right now, and I think that part is still true. It is undeniable. Yeah. The others, you're sliding into categories that I happily don't have to talk about.
So to conclude this, Mark, what it sounds like is that we are going to be waiting for our General Assembly to pass a law that says only citizens can vote, which is, they're talking about making the change in the law is named specifically only citizens can vote. I don't know why they need to do that, but just for extra emphasis.
I think this is preamble. That's in place right now.
But until they pass a law that says the burden of proof is going to be on the voter, and they will have to show one of those three things that verify, that's what we're going to have to wait for.
It's even worse than that. I think you got to wait on two things. You got to wait on a legal determination that, as regards this topic of how to demonstrate citizenship. And frankly, we've sort of fallen into what is probably a more political term than a legal term, proof of citizenship. It's what is the satisfactory showing of citizenship.
Right, verification of citizenship.
Yeah, fair. And right now, the law of the land is the feds call the shots on that. So you're actually waiting for two things. You're looking for some judicial determination that no, it's open for states to enter into that field as well. And taking the field is a legal phrase where feds, we say we're going to regulate this and to the exclusion of everybody else, or it's something that states can do their own thing.
Well, obviously states, DHHS is, they're doing that, and they're going to the federal DHS to verify citizenship, to make sure that if they're going to give benefits, financial benefits,
DSS.
DSS, I'm sorry.
It's going to go to DHS.
DSS is gonna go to DHS
Yeah.
to verify citizenship, and they're doing it.
Yeah, and I think that's by, I think that's by rule, that's specific thing is by rule rather than statute. But it is a statutorily based grant that they have.
Okay.
And that's, so you're actually waiting on, in my opinion, on two things. Is a judicial determination that the feds have not exclusively taken the field on that topic. And then a North Carolina-based law. Now, North Carolina could do what Arizona did and pass a law and run it up the appeals flagpole
Right.
and see what happens. But basically, that's the same thing. It's, they would need a judicial determination that, so it's,
So we're living in a world of elections where it's considered critical infrastructure, and we are being forced to allow risk to that critical infrastructure because we do not verify citizenship.
now,
Jimmy,
Yes, sir.
I think our critical infrastructure is going to be rebuilt. It's going to be retooled. A lot of this and a lot of what's coming down and a lot of the pressures and such from groups, organizations, party.
Right.
With the goal of maybe seeing that this could be implemented by 2024 general election is not probably going to happen. But 2025 can be a changing time with the stays, with the appeals, with what's going to happen in a lot of our states. 2025 in preparation for 2026, there's going to be enough lead time probably. But, you know, this is sort of counterpoint to what you're saying, and
But I do understand. Yeah.
one other thing I'd throw into that is we're going to see changes in this process. I don't know how much or how little, but one of the things that I think is really going to run it, what way more than people realize is data and technology around data.
Yeah.
There's going to be a point where there's going to be accessible databases that tell us a lot more, a lot quicker, and all of a sudden, what used to be impractical it becomes practical. At that point, you're going to see lots of change.
I agree.
I think that's going to be as much a driver in the long term as anything else.
in this discussion, if I may have, the allowance to add the views of one of our board members that is absent, that, with your permission, I'd like to read in a memo that is written and sent in, for this subject matter, dated today, 8/27/24, Surry County Board of Elections. Fellow board members, I had hoped to be present for today's meeting, but as I earlier indicated to each of you, I had another commitment this afternoon that required my presence. Also, as I indicated earlier, I'd hoped we could wait until our full board was present before moving on matters as consequential as those presented to us recently by way of text and email. I had originally thought we would be waiting to have this discussion, but since this has proven not to be the case, I have taken the time to carefully read all the links and materials in the text and emails I've received, including the link to my oath as a board member. After having done so, I've reached three conclusions. One, I support the strengthening of mechanisms nationwide that would help safeguard the voter eligibility roles in our state and nation. Two, I conclude that if only one political party or interest drives the effort to safeguard our voter eligibility rolls, it is likely it's doing so to gain some political advantage, either prior to election day through the voter eligibility rolls themselves, or to set themselves up for challenges in the court after election day is passed, and perhaps both. 3, I believe we would invite confusion among the electorate were we to incorporate a new process or procedure only 70 days before the election day. Materials are already published online on the county and state DOE websites concerning the current accepted requirements. Neither the North Carolina State Board of Elections nor our state legislature has seen fit to substantially change them. Our doing so at a county level at this point in the process would do a further disservice, not just to the public, but to our DOE staff as well. Relying upon the materials provided by way of the text and email, my own research, and upon the conclusions I've reached, I strongly oppose the adoption of any new policy. I thank each of you for taking time to hear my thoughts, and please accept my sincerest apologies for my absence today. Yours in service, Clark.
Thank you, Commissioner. I respect the response. Don't agree with all of it, but I respect the response.
Well, counterpoint.
Yes,
Counterpoint.
absolutely. That's the beauty of what we do.
And that's our discussion.
We're not, what we're talking about here, we're not talking about checking anybody's verification if it's Poindexter or Carter or Payne. We're talking about checking people that has Hispanic names. Just get the big elephant out of the room. That's what it's all about. It's about getting, it is primarily looking at Hispanic influence into the county,
Primarily
into the
because
state,
that has
into the
been the
county.
biggest demographic influx of illegal immigration in the country.
Can you imagine what we would run into if we started going through everybody and say, that sounds like a Hispanic name, check that. We need to check that. That sounds like a Hispanic name, we need to check that.
We wouldn't do that, or we shouldn't do that.
But that's the whole
We can be
idea behind
accused
it
of that.
though.
No, it's
That's
not.
got to be the idea. That's where it's coming. That's the genesis of the whole thing. It's coming from,
That
it's
might
coming
be,
from there.
that is certainly not the position I take. My position is coming solely from the standpoint, the U.S. Constitution says only citizens can vote. I don't care who the citizen is, or so-called citizens. I could care less what their nationality may be, because we're all Americans. Doesn't matter. North Carolina Constitution says the same thing. Only a person born in the country or naturalized or at least 18 can vote. We're not verifying anything. We don't verify that fact at all. We just don't. Doesn't matter who the registered voter is. But I don't disagree with you that maybe this is the catalyst when we have supposedly 9 million, maybe 10 million people that have come into this country. Not all Hispanics, not all Chinese, Russians, people from all over the place have come across. I think the last number was like 22,000 Chinese who were totally unvetted. I'm not calling out anything to be prejudiced. It's just that we've got 9 to 10 million people that have entered this country that we know of. That's not even necessarily an accurate number, but it's pretty close. They're not citizens of this country. They're not. And that can swing whether, doesn't matter the party affiliation, that can impact every party, depending on how that group wants to vote. So it can change, and it disenfranchises, in my mind, people in Surry County who are lawful citizens and are lawful voters. It takes away from their vote if there is one unlawful registered voter in the county. To me, that's how important it is It's why the federal government has labeled it critical infrastructure. If you allow one, then you allow a risk to take a hit against the critical. So that's where I'm coming.
We're humans.
We are.
Humans make mistakes.
We do.
We're not gonna be perfect.
No, we're not.
But the whole genesis of this has got to be, I don't know of any, I haven't seen a bunch of Chinese people invade the grocery store on Friday afternoon. I haven't seen people speaking Russian or German,
But that's
but
not,
that's where it's coming
but
from.
that's not to say that they're
One
they're
other
not
thing
here.
about what we swore to, I've swore to this, and I've swore to it before, as we all have, says will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina and to the constitutional powers and authorities which are or may be established for the government there.
Yep.
That means we're responsible for that.
Yes.
It comes downhill.
Yeah,
It don't
does.
start down here. It don't start at the bottom and go up unless you wanna run for office.
No, I'm saying it is coming from the top down because our US Constitution already defines who can vote.
But we do take our instructions from top down.
We do.
We had a to-do about that last year at courthouse. And there was two board members that wanted to show their way forward, and they got rebuffed.
And it wasn't supported by law. So totally understand that.
And I'm not gonna do anything to go against this either, because I don't wanna stand before God and say, Lord, I swore a lie that day when I said I was gonna do my best to uphold the laws and constitutions of the state of North Carolina, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States.
Right.
And I've got my signature here, and I'm not gonna risk going to hell or doing something wrong for something I swore allegiance to.
And I'm
And
not.
I don't want anybody to imply that I would do that.
No, nor am I asking that we do that. Furthest from what is the
I've
fact.
been sitting here quiet and I've been thinking, and I brought this thing up here today to show. I wanted to see it verbatim.
Glad you did. So I'm not asking us to do anything that is not within the framework of the law.
Well, I agree.
And I would never ask us to do anything or consider anything
I feel a whole lot better.
that was not within the framework of the
I
law.
want to get that out, folks.
I appreciate
The
you.
big elephant in the room and what we swore.
Yeah, and, you know, I can't disagree that amongst the demographics, it is the biggest single demographic that's in question. Not the only one. It is not the only one.
The only one I've seen.
Well, and I'm with you, but it's certainly because it's overwhelmingly the biggest number, and that's what we're all seeing. If they want to follow a path of citizenship, great. And if we, you know, if they want to become a citizen of this country, wonderful. I think that's, you know, what this country's all about. But I was coming from purely looking at what we're doing, looking at what the law says. We're following blind trust at best because we don't verify a darn thing when it comes to citizenship. I was under the false impression that finally with HAVA and forcing to follow law that we would, Social Security number would guarantee it. And then I started doing some digging and then I realized, no, that doesn't guarantee citizenship either. I know driver's license doesn't. Social Security number doesn't either. So where do we go? And that's where I was coming from. The Constitution, both of the country and the state does say only citizens can vote.
The federal government or the state is gonna have to hand something other down to us, down is
Yes,
what he said, it's gonna flow down.
obviously.
I mean, you know, unless we do start picking those names out to put a batch in for going to DHS, that would be somewhere in the neighborhood of about $24,000 that I'm sure that is not appropriated to the Board of Elections to put 48,000 names in to be checked. Like I said, this is going to be a slow process than trying to get it done. And I'll have to say it too, as some of these right-wing groups are opposing and pushing Project One, Stephen Miller, and those that are pushing it, and it's not Surry County, it's 100 county.
It is.
It's 50 states,
It is.
and it is suspect. I'm sorry.
No, no, no.
I'm not trying to put you on the
No,
cutting
no,
board.
and I don't think it that way, Mr. Chairman, at all. Again, as I've said, never would I even suggest us not following the law. I was really wanting to learn, is the law a minimum requirement as it reads? And does that allow us as a local board to take an additional step and be within the law? Mr. Payne has explained his legal opinion, it does. So I'm done with the topic until such time that the state does do something. I think it's coming. It's just a matter of when, because it's happening in other states. We will be putting the burden on the voter at that point, for sure. Not with what I was suggesting, but not putting the voter on the burden. This will definitely put the burden on the voter to present a valid passport, an original birth certificate, and or naturalization papers, and that's where we're headed. I mean, we'll have it at some point. But anyway, thank everybody.
Yeah, at the risk of slapping around a horse is already pretty sick. One of the things I like about my job is there are places where I don't have to have an opinion. I think somebody more cynical than me might have an opinion about the political origins of lots of the lawsuits we deal with. But I've tried to focus solely on the way I interpret the legal aspects of it. And I do want to say, even though you don't need anybody to come to your defense, that at the outset, you did say that you felt that the only way this would work is if it's everybody. And I think that's right. And I would, and I think the legal issue is you have to expand on that. If we're in North Carolina, if you're going to do something for Surry County, you got to do it for all 100. So it's that everybody is just a lot larger than what you were contemplating the issues about.
For the record, I don't want anyone voting that's not a citizen either.
I know
I
that.
don't either.
I know that. I'm confident of that.
But we have to look at our history. We have a poor history down here of rooting out voters that we don't want. My father used to do taxes for Marshallville, and on that tax, where he put up signs, says, the poll tax. Everybody has to pay this poll tax, and then I remember a great big stamp being put on, repealed. That's the story of North Carolina with the voters, with excluding voters is a pretty sorry state. It's only been righted in the last 50 years, letting everyone that should have a franchise enjoy their franchise.
I agree.
So we have to step very lightly, so to speak.
Well, and it's tomorrow, wanted to say, this would have to apply to everybody. Certainly, everybody in the county. All of us included.
And I think that comes back to my question
Yeah.
was, okay, who would have?
Yeah. Well, and
Because my initial brain, went to a pick and choose, not all.
yeah.
And then to speak to that, just a point of reference, I think your figure was 50 cents times 48,000 voters, something like that.
Yeah, 50 cents.
Just as a point of
Per
reference.
inquiry.
If
We just
anyone
made
else
one.
is listening, that's where you got that $24,000.
Yes.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I guess somewhat of a defense of our present state board of elections and the director, they have been receiving a whole lot of heat, a whole lot of pressure on what has gone down and what has not taken place with Papa. And it didn't start with our present board, with our present state board and our state director, because it happened from 2013 to 2019 under Jim Scott. And and
A different board.
through Republican administration, that nothing was changed. The meter didn't go off of zero as far as I know.
We basically ignored it for 20 years.
And now it's time to do something, but it's going to take time. Is there anything else under other business, Madam Director? I think we have put this,
Thank you, thank you.
and thank
I want
you
to extend the
all.
olive branch. Because of Alan put it in.
I went through this whole thing with the idea of an olive branch in mind, but, you know.
Because that was a good start.
Because it benefits every lawful voter.
I'm just looking at that.
I'd start by saying, I think it's a good question. I think it's a question that a lot of people don't understand. Well, frankly, almost nobody's ever going to understand exactly how complicated y'all's job is and the kind of restrictions you guys have to operate with.
I wish we had people, I wish that crowd up there
Was here,
was.
absolutely.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm with you.
The only thing I had, Mr. Chairman, was I was just gonna report at 8 a.m. this morning, we did have 292 absentee ballot requests. So,
That's a problem.
And then,
that's total.
you including the ones that checked, that's probably not. including the-
Oh, no, probably not.
Yeah, so we're probably closer to five,
Five.
six.
If y'all will excuse me, you have the benefit of me not chiming in. Thanks.
So,
I'll be back in just a minute.
My point to that is, you go ahead and keep October 1st. We're gonna have some ballots to look at.
Be two times a week, like it was in the week.
Well, they haven't set that, but now this board can set additional meetings
We
if
did
we,
that twice.
Still, it's nowhere near
What,
local.
when do we do it? When?
Tuesdays and Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Yeah.
But the state board required that because of the
Going
pandemic.
The volume.
The volume with absentee, yeah.
Yeah, there might not be as many with pandemic.
Yeah, jury's still out on that, but it's nowhere near this early, which we're not early. But yeah.
But I thank each and every one of you for allowing me to still.
Two.
Thank you. Thank you. And
Got me walking with it.
Because I'm sure we all want the same.
Anybody wanna pause while we're waiting?
Well,
Or
if
take a
there's
minute?
nothing further in other business, we can, charge forward and go into closed session and
Okay.
take just a little bit of a
Take a
break
break
there
before
between.
that? Okay.
If they're all in favor, for
Aye.
closed session, I'll make the motion and,
Second that motion?
okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're in closed session. Thank you.
wife would like to do
Well, yeah, I'm sure she, yeah, I bet she probably had a lot of those, students.
Oh,
I'm sure she did.
are we out of clothes now?
No, hang on just a second,
Well,
sorry.
I was
Trying to get us
gonna
back on.
tell you, when we left the conference
Uh-huh.
that Tuesday, we no more got home and Tracy got a high fever
You are kidding.
and breaking out all over. And she called, and we went straight to Forsyth Hospital at the emergency room that night, and she stayed for a week.
What it was wrong?
It's cellulitis.
Oh, my word.
And they kept her that long.
Okay, we're back in open session. You're in our closed session. We took. We're in open session again. During our closed session, we discussed personnel and we discussed legal. And we took no vote, no actions, no motions, for anything, that we would need to report on at this time. So, in open session, is there anything further coming from our director?
No, sir.
Any other board members?
No, sir.
If not, I look for a motion for adjournment.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that this meeting be adjourned.
We have a motion and we have a second. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.